Amid global pressure to end the Gaza conflict and pursue ceasefire talks, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told Time magazine last week that he remains steadfast in his commitment to continue the fight. We have with us Eric Cortellessa, the journalist from Time who conducted the interview. Welcome, Eric.
It's good to be with you. Thank you.
Now, despite pressure from global leaders to end the Gaza conflict and ceasefire hostage talks that are going to take place at the end of the week, Netanyahu appears committed to continuing the fight. If this hostage deal falls through, how do you think this will impact Israel's long-term security and relationships with key allies like the U.S.?
Well, I think it will undermine Israel's credibility. I think it really sort of depends how things shake out. Hamas might have given Israel some cover by saying it wouldn't participate in the hostage ceasefire negotiations on August 15th. But ultimately, most of the world is going to hold Israel responsible if it does not come forward with this deal to bring home the returning hostages and end the fighting. The conflict in Gaza has already resulted in 40,000 casualties, and the world is inflamed over it and wants it to end. And if Israel continues to prolong the fight, that is only going to hurt its reputation abroad.
Now, despite a majority of Israelis believing that Netanyahu should step down, polls show him leading potential rivals at the moment. You've interviewed a lot of leaders and covered politics for quite a while. What does this disconnect tell us about Israeli political culture and Netanyahu's influence?
Well, I think it shows that Netanyahu is still, a very gifted politician. He has incredible resilience and staying power in Israel, despite the fact that he is very unpopular, despite the fact that he is now riven with unavoidable failures. And I think it shows some of the limitations of the parliamentary, purely proportional representative parliamentary system, that he is able to still corral coalitions together and stay in power. And we see what that has cost him. And Israel with the latest government, because he had to bring in the parties headed by Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, who have really handcuffed him with a number of key policy decisions.
Netanyahu claimed he controls Israel's policy, yet his coalition partners, of course, have starkly different views. Do you think his assurances about Saudi normalization are believable?
When it comes to Saudi normalization, I think it depends. I think the Saudis do have a genuine desire to have a normalization deal with Israel. I think Israel has a genuine desire to have a normalization deal with Saudi Arabia. I think the United States would like to see this agreement go forward. The Saudis have an issue with their street. They have an issue with the fact that they want to see a Palestinian state emerge, or they at least want to see an Israeli government take good faith steps toward a Palestinian state. So I think, it's certainly not off the table in the long run. It doesn't seem like it's going to happen anytime soon. But we'll have to see how things shake out with the war and how Israel proceeds with trying to resolve its very long dispute with the Palestinians once the fighting comes to a halt.
Now, what is your key takeaway from your interview with the Prime Minister? What message did you hope to leave the Israeli and Jewish public after you published your story?
I think the biggest takeaway was that, Netanyahu refuses to take responsibility for what happened on October 7th. He refuses to take responsibility for all of the decisions he made to render Israel vulnerable. And in the wake of this, he really is not willing to even tell the truth when people have to ask him tough questions. I asked him a number of questions. A lot of times he gave me false answers that simply weren't true. And, there's a reason why he doesn't do interviews with Israeli journalists. He hasn't done a real interview with Israeli journalists since October 7th because he's unwilling to face the music from his own people about the precarious situation he put them in. And so I think that the interview really paints a devastating portrait of a leader who refuses to take responsibility for his own failures.
All right, Eric Cortellessa, thank you for joining us.